I ask Commissioner Stewart to lead us in the invocation and the pledge.
Please stand and join us. Heavenly Father, we thank you again for this opportunity to come and serve you. Lord, we just ask that you bless us here tonight with wisdom as we take on the business of the county. Lord, I just ask that you be with those families and the families of the victims in the church in Texas, God, that you just heal that part of our land, Lord. And I just ask that you touch our land, touch our people. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you all for coming out tonight. If you'd like to speak, we have two different citizens to be heard opportunities, either at the beginning or at the end of the meeting. Please fill out a speaker card with Miss Patty here. And also you can speak on each individual agenda item if you'd like, and fill out a speaker card on each one. When you come up, if you'll give us your name and address and speak into the microphone so the folks at home can see you and hear what you're saying. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to add on item for ship down payment assistance and closing costs for Abigail Gordon, and please add that on the general business, please.
Okay. Anything else?
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. All righty. Start out with citizens to be heard. Mr. Larry Roberts.
Larry Roberts, Shop Shoppy. Nice coat, Randy.
Thank you. My mother got it for me for my birthday.
I think you have a copy of this survey poll, Mason and Dixon, before you. Conducted sometime in the near past throughout the state. The margin of error, according to the standards customary used by statisticians, is no more than 4% plus or minus. This means there's a 95% probability that the true figure would fall within that range if all voters were surveyed. The question that was put out in this survey was, the state of Florida allows hunters on public land to use unleashed dogs to chase deer so that deer may be shot by hunters. Do you think the state should or should not allow the use of dogs in deer hunting on lands the public owns? Throughout the state, 65% of those surveyed thought they should not. 19% that they should. 16% were unsure. The state was broken down into 5 regions: North Florida, Central Florida, Tampa Bay, Southwest Florida, Southeast Florida. In North Florida, that contains Wakulla County, 58% think that people should not use deer dogs hunting deer. 29% think they should, 13% is not sure. Of all the areas, the should not had the overwhelming majority. Men, 61 thought they should not. 68% of the women thought they should not. Less than 50 people of age, 67% dogs should be used to hunt deer. 64% over 50 thought they should not. In all instances, as I mentioned, it should not. Whites, 66% should not. Black, 62% should not. Hispanic, 64% should not. Party registration, Democrats, 68% should not. 62% of the Republicans, 66% of the independents. On to page 3, it goes into demographics, and I won't read all of that. You have it before you. That's about all I want to say. That's just high points. While I'm here, if I got more time, let me talk about the swimming pool. There is not anything people of Wakulla County needs less than a place to swim. Granted, we're not on the West Florida coast beaches that are, okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Same thing my dad.
Next, Mr. Bob Ballard.
Good evening. Bob Ballard, Wakulla Environmental Institute. I'm here to talk about agenda item number 8 with the Gulf Triumph money. We're looking, Wakulla Environmental Institute has been an economic engine for Wakulla County for a number of years. The oyster program has brought in at least 75 new jobs, full-time jobs to the area. Wakulla Environmental Institute and TCC has spent over $10 million from Wakulla County. I got a phone call from President Murdaugh this morning, who was very insistent on me. I was going to be here anyway, but to speak about this, to ask the commissioners to let them know how important their support is for this project with the Gulf Triumph. Your application is, you've probably all read it by now. This Maritime Manufacturing Training Center is a part of a $22.5 million project. We're asking for $15 million. This manufacturing training center will create jobs in Wakulla County by using different opportunities like oyster cage manufacturing, which we've already talked to a manufacturing company in Australia, and they want us to house that here in Wakulla County with Wakulla Environmental Institute. Oyster boat building would be housed in this manufacturing training center. Canning of mullet would give the fishermen a place to harvest their mullet. Right now, the mullet is being turned away. I remember Commissioner Thomas, when we went before the TCC board a number of years ago, and how good the canned mullet was, and they were excited about it. Well, this would be that building where this canning could take place and would take place. We'd also develop new crops such as scallops, which Fish and Wildlife has already asked us to start partaking in. This would allow us to go for the Center of Excellence award, which would be a $2 million award every year, as long as we're in compliance, to start an underwater welding, shipbuilding, welding training center, as well as underwater drone technology center. Both of these would be different centers of excellence, and we could bring in as much as $2 million per center of excellence at Wakulla Environmental Institute. And then lastly, this still would bring in an auditorium that would seat 5,000 people, and which we promised to bring in 5 years ago when I first started with Wakulla Environmental Institute. And of course, that would be just enough to house graduation for Wakulla High School. We're very serious about committing to that and making that happen, and this building would allow that to happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next, Robbie Miller. You want to speak now?
No, right.
Okay.
Wait till your item.
Yeah. You want to speak if needed on your item, not at citizens to be heard.
Let me
Correct.
have his card back.
All right, that ends our citizens to be heard. We have no awards and presentation. Do we have a motion to approve the consent?
Consent?
Have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next, we'll go into general business, item number 8.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this agenda item requests board approval of a letter to the Gulf Triumph Coast Board outlining board priority projects and transmitting a list of recommended projects. As you know, these came from projects. We had our meeting last week, our public hearing, and a workshop, excuse me. And these projects came from there. We had a whole list of projects that are outlined in the agenda item, but based upon the criteria by the Gulf Triumph Board, as well as the board discussion and discussion with Mr. Remington's input at the workshop, staff is recommending the following projects to be given priority. Number 1 is Wakulla County School Board, Wakulla Career and Technical Education Center, Wakulla County Learning Center, First Responder Communication System, new library, and a handicap accessible canoe launch for St. Mark's.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Do we have any citizens on this?
Does this preclude TCC from applying for I mean, they can still apply for Triumph money, right?
Well, this is
does it have-
just, this isn't, it's not dropped, this is an ongoing process.
Right,
This is the
right.
first, and then there'll be another tranche, they're saying probably in January, there'll be another set of projects that we'll need to bring
Well,
forward.
Bob wasn't at the
But-
workshop, so he's not on this list. Just want
That still does, yeah.
that doesn't
that's
mean
all.
we're not opposed to whatever
Well,
he's
it's,
doing.
it's still on the recommended projects list, so you're submitting the entire recommended projects list, correct?
Yes, but we want you guys, we feel like, here's the thing
Is
is,
this the Learning Center? Is that the TCC project?
no,
No, the Learning Centers
is the Wakulla County School Board. Okay. They're asking they want a list of projects that are our priority projects. And as we talked about in our board meeting, or in our meeting, is what we're looking at is human capital. One of the needs that we have here in the county, as Bobby so eloquently put it, was we've got a real big gap right now in our education process from the time that the kids hit 10th grade and the majority of them are pushing them to college. There's no other outlet for them. So this is what that is, and the two that are top there, that's what they do, and that's a urgent need that we all agreed on. The third is a first responder communication system. We had went to the legislature on that. The governor vetoed it and said go to see Gulf Triumph. We have to have that. Our system's going to go down. Fourth is the new library. We all talked about that. We're overtaxed. That's also, that goes right in line with what the school board's wanting to do. So our general gist in this was that to give the Gulf Triumph Board, because they're looking for projects that can come right out of the chute that are going to make an impact in the communities, the first shot. And that's what we're recommending you guys. Y'all can put what you want to here, but these are the ones we're recommending. If you want to give the Gulf Board, Triumph Board, what they're looking for, we as staff feel like this
I
is
didn't
what
make
that
the
is.
motion to approve it. I'm assuming you're explaining it.
Yes, I am.
Public.
Exactly.
I'll ask a question. Bobby's technical, is that in?
That's number one,
number one.
Technical
So the two-
Education Center.
Yeah, the two programs for the school board are the 1 and 2, and those are some of the best programs that we could have.
In fact, the attorney for Gulf Triumph said those were the two of the best projects that, since he's been listening throughout all the counties, those are two of the best projects that he's heard.
Good job, Bobby, or your actual.
Excellent job.
But, I mean, that's not to say, like I say, that there's projects here that were recommended. St. Mark's has a couple more projects, Oyster Bay, Mid-Arc Park improvements, realignment of 61 and Shell Point Road, Camp Indian Springs, and then a new rec park on US 319. All that's still on the list and it's coming, but we just felt like for what the Gulf Triumph Board wanted, this was a good priority list.
And are we submitting this entire list, even the ones
This
that...
entire list will go there, but we'll have these as our priorities.
Right.
Okay.
I don't think we can eliminate something. We have to send it forward.
Right. Very good. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, next, general business item number 9.
We want just some fun stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about feral cats after this.
In the wetlands.
Do you want to talk about this?
And then wetland.
So this is an item, Mr. Chairman, concerning the airport and the airport zoning requirements. After we last addressed this issue with the board, we did meet with DOT to discuss the possibility of a legislative modification this year to allow the Wakulla County Airport some leeway in complying with the state requirements. DOT indicated they had spent years working on this statutory rewrite and that they didn't want to open it up again to the legislative process, that they would not support that at this time. So given that DOT, unless the county is truly interested in hiring lobbyists and putting a full court press on this, without DOT support, we thought that might be a little bit of a futile effort for us to pursue this year. Accordingly, in our conversations with DOT, they said, we could perhaps look at some additional options for compliance with this statute. What they had suggested, but they would not commit to in writing, was that we could address it without actually addressing it.
I'll move option one with the, with further direction for staff to start working with the Tarpine Homeowners Association to transition to private ownership away from the county.
Okay, so
Homeowners Association and DOT to cooperate.
Yeah, to cooperate together to smooth this transition as possible, and I'll explain if anybody wants me to explain.
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. We'll hear from the citizens. Mr. Bill Anderson.
Let me just say, I didn't know what y'all were going to do, but I think that is the wise choice. But I believe 3 or 4 years ago, when you stepped into this airport situation, you stepped into quicksand. I think you're about to get deeper in quicksand. The master plan was $75,000. This noise study is $150,000. When you read the noise study, it's governed by the Code of Federal Regulations. It says when doing it, you consider not only what's there now, but your master plan. Going back to the master plan you approved, remember you're lengthening the runway, you're tilting it to the south so it can be longer. You're possibly paving it, etc. All those things will bring in bigger planes, making the noise level higher. Assume you do the noise study or whatever, and all those considerations, and the noise study proves that it's hazardous to the people that already live there and what's around it. What are you going to do then? You step further into the quicksand. If you don't do that, the protected area where you're not supposed to be building under the zoning regulations, again, under your master plan, if you follow that, the area is half the distance of the runway extended out. You're lengthening the runway under your master plan. You're turning it to the right, further to the south, which incorporates new people into that protected area that aren't in it now, creating additional problems for the county. So I asked you to consider all of this very carefully before you step quicker into the quicksand, and I think your proposal is probably the best way to get out of the quicksand.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Clay Kirsteiner.
Good evening, Commissioners. Clay Kirsteiner at 8 Stinson. First of all, let me say again, and I've said this to you guys before, thank you for what you do for Wakulla County. People don't tell you that enough, but you spend countless hours doing all kinds of things for this county that nobody knows about, and they will never know about it, but thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
With regard to the airport, there are approximately 250 airports in the state of Florida. About 20, as my best guess, have commercial air service, so that takes it down to 230. About 35 of those are designated low-use airports. We happen to have one of those here in Wakulla County. So that puts you down to around 200 airports. If anybody thinks that the state of Florida is going to come in and shut down 230 airports over noise, that's a fallacious thought. It's not going to happen. This regulation has been here for a long time, and now the state has just simply said, okay, the burden of enforcing it is going to go to the counties. The state's not going to do, we're not going to do anything about it, so the counties have to do it. In a very informal discussion that I've had at neighboring airports, everybody at the other airports around here kind of seemed to say, well, you know, these are really things for big airports. They don't really apply to us, and we're not going to go out and prevent building around airports. Now, I can say from personal experience, we live about halfway down the runway. I hear every airplane that departs and every airplane that arrives, and I can tell you that my belief is that if there were a noise study done, they would find that the greatest noise impact to the area around the airport is Surf Road, the Ocklawackney Bay, the river down there with the boats going back and forth, the highway with the motorcycles and the semis, which we hear all of that, the airboats all up in the marsh and out in the river out there, And the lowest impact, noise-wise, is going to actually be the airport. That's my prediction if there's an airport study done. I don't particularly buy the $150,000 airport study figure. I'm sure that was done with something in mind that makes sense, but I doubt that that's a $150,000 issue. And I'll point out to you that the last large airport built in the United States of America was at Denver International. The physical airport area is larger than Dallas-Fort Worth, Chicago O'Hare, and JFK put together in the footprint of that airport. Before the very first airplane departed, and I flew out of that airport religiously, routinely, before the first airplane departed from that, there were special noise abatement procedures because developers went in and built houses right out at the end of the runway out there. Noise is an issue that's been around for a long time, and I think we need to consider that the airport down here, noise is not an issue, and it's been voted time and time again by lots of people who built their homes within a reasonable distance from the airport up to and including almost adjacent to it. So I would encourage you guys to look at option 5, take a deep breath, give it some time to happen, give it some time to mature in the state. This is a relatively new thing with the counties being responsible for doing it, and I think we'll find that most counties are saying it's not really an issue. Thank you, sirs.
Thank you.
So number 5 is abandon the county's ownership, right? That's what.
Well, I misspoke then.
There's no 5.
There is
Well, not in the option, but in the 5 items listed in the text, the body.
Just relax.
All right. That ends our citizens. Further discussion.
Well, the reason I came to this conclusion, you know, I've always supported the airport. I've always said I don't have any problem having an airport. I'm never going to use it as long as it doesn't cost anything. But the legislature changed that. And I talked to several people today, several hours about this. I've talked to the guy that gave the county a price. A noise study probably realistic is $50,000. It's not just putting a microphone out there. You got to have public input meetings. You got to meet the CFR 150 standard for them to accept it. And, you know, I'm just not willing to spend a lot of money on it, you know. Kind of like the swimming pool. It can pay for itself, fine, but I don't want to throw a bunch of county money at it. And we'd have to be in compliance with it because we're asking DOT for grant money, right, Heather?
Yeah, right now you have a provisional license. You have for the airport, you have to make certain improvements in order to bring it into compliance. And in order to make those improvements, you're asking for grant money from DOT. If you get additional grant money from them, then you're at a point now where you're going to have to keep that airport open for at least 20 years after that.
And we have to be in compliance with Chapter 333.
That's correct.
Which
It's
means we have to do the
specific.
noise study to get it. I agree with what he said. I suspect they average the decibels over a 24-hour time period. I think your son's having a good time out there, David. I'm tired of me talking. Anyway, they average the noise. It's called a day-night average or something like that. And I think it would pass because, you know, there's very few takeoffs and landings out there. But still, to get to that point, we got to spend a lot of money. And I'm just, you know, I talked to a lot of people about it. And I'm not anti-airport, but I don't want to spend a bunch of taxpayer money on it either.
I think that's pretty much been the consensus, is if we can keep it open without spending a bunch of local money, then why wouldn't we? But it seems like we're quickly losing that option. And right now, we're not really spending the money on maintenance, right? The tarpaulin, the homeowners they're doing the maintenance, and so this grant that we've been chasing wouldn't be needed if it was a private airport, and there would be no need to bring it into compliance because it wouldn't fall into those rules.
And nothing would change for the tarpaulin homeowners.
Nothing but, and they could keep using it, and everybody would be, you know, using it as they currently are using it, and we wouldn't have to spend any money. That would be the best option.
I mean, I've spoken to several people, and that was a consensus I got today, the folks that I spoke to. You know, I don't want to lose it as an asset, but it sounds like that it just becomes easier because we don't have to comply if we revert it back private.
And David, you'll assist in whatever way we can with the transition with DOT. And
Yeah, I'll take that lead.
So your motion is to start negotiation and
abandon ownership of it and transition back to help them however we need to do it by the end. Like you say, at the end of the day, It's not our airport anymore, when you're all done.
Well, we need to investigate that because there's reverter issues and other real property issues. And I've been told that those have been taken care of, but we have to verify
But there's
that.
nothing there to compel us to keep it, right?
No,
So what if we get into that process and find out that,
we'll come back to you.
okay, so if it looks like the heirs would have a legal ability to say, okay, if it reverts back to us, we're going to plant corn there or put condos or whatever, then that would come back to the board?
Yep. We'll bring that back to you.
Okay. Good with your motion?
Yep.
Second?
Yes.
All right. Very good. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next, we have a add-on item for SHIP, and I will be refraining from voting on this particular item.
Yes, this is a request for the board's approval to award SHIP fundings for purchase assistance to Abigail Gordon for down payment and closing costs to purchase an existing single-family home in the amount of $15,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any citizens? Further discussion? Do I need to declare what my interest is, or?
Yeah, and just briefly, and then you just have a form to fill
Okay, I
out.
did fill out the form.
Okay.
My wife is the loan officer that is representing the buyer on this transaction, so I will not be voting on it. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0. That ends our general business. We'll go into public hearing, item number 10.
Yes, this is a request for the board's approval to conduct the final public hearing and adopt an ordinance creating commercial zoning districts and architectural standards for the Crawfordville Town Plan area. Since the last board meeting, staff has made a couple minor adjustments to the text based on comments received by the board. One addresses the flat roofs, and that adjustment has been made to only prohibit the visibility of flat roofs from road right-of-ways. And staff has also began the drafting of an administrative regulation, which will be presented to the board in the very near future, that addresses additional details as they relate to the architectural design standards outlined in this ordinance.
Motion to conduct the final public hearing and adopt an ordinance creating the commercial zoning districts and architectural standards for Crawfordville Town Plan. Now, did you add in what we talked about, Heather, about referring to the actual?
Yes, that was the other amendment that was made. There is now actually a reference in the architectural standards that will direct citizens to view those administrative
Did you include
regulations
that in
as
my motion,
well.
Heather, or is that what I did sufficient?
I would just say your motion would be what the changes recommended by staff.
That's what I said. Did y'all catch that?
Okay, I just wanted to take childcare,
Second?
second, with a, I want to make a friendly amendment.
Sure.
here. I want to take childcare and move it out of downtown zoning as allowable
for the
use
next
and
item.
Make it a provisional use.
That's the next.
Next item.
That's the next
Oh, that's the
item.
next one? Okay.
Good try, Jerry.
Vet
Well-
clinics.
I kept getting this too. The long list of papers.
So your second stands?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion and a
Well, we
second.
put the veterinarian with,
That would be this one.
that would be this one. The veterinarian only inside kennels, no outside kennels?
I'll accept that amendment. What zoning district is that in?
That would apply to the town center, high-intensity commercial, and low-intensity commercial districts.
I'll amend my motion for that. Chuck, any more?
That's it?
Okay.
Motion and second. I have a speaker, Ms. Carol Odell, but I think she left. That's it. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 11.
Item number 11 is a request for the board's approval to conduct the final public hearing and adopt an ordinance amending and updating existing commercial zoning districts.
Motion to approve. Chuck, just,
Second, with the childcare made a provisional, a conditional use, not a
primary.
primary use. That means, I can see a problem if you had a childcare with lots of drop-offs and pick-offs in a downtown, a dense downtown area. You know, on the edge of it, coming in with a back entrance might be one thing, but, you know, if you had,
Summer, you all right with that?
I'm good with that.
I'll amend my motion to reflect Chuck's friendly amendment.
We have a motion, second. Any citizens, Patty?
Summer, you covered everything I talked about at the first public hearing.
Yes, staff made those adjustments as it relates to lumber and hardware supply stores within the C2 zoning district, and also incorporating the director's ability to approve similarly related principal uses.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
The
All
next
right.
item this evening,
Planning and zoning number 12.
This is an application for a final plat, FP 1705 for River Ridge. In accordance with Section 24.01 of the County Code, all the commission members need to disclose any ex parte communications regarding this application. Commissioner Hess?
None.
No.
None.
None.
I didn't even talk to the county attorney about this one.
Anyone here who's going to provide any information on this application, please stand up to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second. Wade, you want to speak? Okay. Any further discussion?
This is all access from Wakulla Aaron,
Wrong item, I think.
isn't this?
267.
Oh, that's the next
This is
one.
the
20 acre lot.
267.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Trying to get ahead of Chuck all night.
I know. I'm thinking about the ones I want to talk about.
Make sure Chuck takes his memory pills before he comes to these meetings.
Further discussion?
Okay.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. And in zoning item number 13.
This is an application for a change of zoning R1710. Tanya Hall is the owner. In accordance with the county code, every commission member needs to disclose any ex parte communications.
None.
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 None, motion to approve.
Second.
Hold on. No. If there's anyone here who's going to provide any information on the application, please stand up to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. And
Make sure my name is correct.
Sonia Hall, not Tanya Hall.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Very good. And we have a motion and a second. You have a speaker card. Do you want to speak or just if there's any question? Okay. Further discussion? Hear none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. There we go. Item number 14.
This is an application for a change of zoning R1711 with Golden Construction. Any ex parte communications to disclose? Commissioner Hess?
None.
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 I did talk to him a few weeks ago about this.
Okay. If there is
To
any,
approve.
if there is anyone here who's going to provide any information, please stand up to be sworn, even if you're just going to answer questions, talk about wanting to get ahead.
I might make David's son get on you and yawn you out of here.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. And Robbie, do you want to speak or only question? All right. Further discussion?
You want to make all the access off?
You hadn't had a
Wakulla
second
Aaron?
yet, have you? I
No.
second that.
Yeah, I think we had a second.
We had a
No, you didn't.
No? Okay. Thank you. Oh, that's right, because he jumped in before the swearing.
Randy's son is trying to set a new record.
Did you have any questions on that, Chuck?
I want to know if he was going to do all the access off of Wakulla Aaron. I just, I don't care for the idea of that many access points on the road, but there's no other way to do it, so.
Gotcha. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, we have no commissioner agenda items. County attorney,
Nothing this evening.
county administrator.
Nothing at this time.
Citizens to be heard, number 2? None. Discussion items. Chuck?
Yes. Well, recently the Chamber of Commerce had a big event, and to hold this event, they had to go outside the county. I'm just thinking that that's a wrong thing. We have a facility here where this could take place. We have a community center that could have held that facility, but we can't have alcohol there. it seems like we've got the rules in there so that they have to pay for the insurance and all those things. It seems like a community center would be a great place so people that want to have these kind of events have a place in Wakulla County that they can do it.
If you want to bring it back as an agenda item, I'll support it. You're opening a can of worms. I mean, you're brave enough to do it. Mike could probably comment on it, because you remember when we had the old courthouse come up about people wanting to have weddings there, and that turned into
Well, it's not as though they're going to do it all the time. It's just...
I understand. So if you want to bring it back as an agenda item, I would support it, but I seriously doubt you're going to get unanimous support.
Okay. Let's see. Next one. Okay, I talked to the county commissioner about those bus stops along 319 that haven't been used in decades.
We went through this
We went
couple
over that
years
one,
ago.
too.
Yeah.
Well, let's go through it again.
I think the conclusion is we had no authority over it.
They
because-
permitted DOT
Yeah.
right away.
State roads.
They're all in state right away.
Well, I mean,
They decided they were going to leave them there. We did ask them, I can't remember, whoever brought it up.
well, let's at least get them moved to someplace where they're actually used, because right now
That
they're
came
not.
up too.
Okay, and so, I mean, we should send a letter to DOT and request it. And I would think that they would,
I'm fine with that. I think
I'm fine with that too.
It's a good idea. Just send a letter and ask them if they're
Because
to remove them.
It's basically a small
It's an
billboard.
eyesore.
it's an eyesore.
I don't know if any of them are being used anymore.
They're not.
Can we just,
They'd be used for
Agree to-
signs.
can we just agree to have you draft a letter or sign a letter, or somebody, the staff will draft a letter?
Jerry, you all right with that? You're all right with that, aren't you?
You bet.
All right.
All right?
So we need to vote to do that, or
Yeah, let's make a motion, though.
move that we task the chairman to sign a letter and forward it to DOT to remove those
Let's stop
bus
billboards.
stop billboards along our 319 in our county.
Do you want that to be either remove them or bring them into compliance with state law, which would mean they would have to be at a actual approved
I'd
bus?
say remove them.
I'm good with it.
Well, I mean, it's up to them anyway.
Have to be at an
you
approved
know.
what?
We can ask for anything.
If there is a statute that allows these kind of shelters to be placed under certain conditions. I know one of them, it has to be at an approved school bus stop. It's supposed to be a shelter for kids to sit in
Yeah.
while they're waiting.
Don't do sign language.
I mean, I don't know if they even,
Oh,
I don't know if they even coincide with a bus stop at all.
Not anymore, they don't.
Yeah.
Just do it the whole county, because there are some on Highway 98, so just the whole county.
Yeah.
Okay? That's my motion.
Excellent. I second it.
Got a motion and a
Good idea,
second.
Chuck.
Any citizens like to speak? Was not an agenda item, but you're welcome to speak. Discussion? Hear none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
I think Blue Water's the only one that advertises them anymore.
So, we had a lot of discussion. We're looking at our Triumph projects, and we have a lot of recreational projects on Triumph. We talked about impact fees for recreation. I think it's an idea that could come back out just for we'd have seed money to put forward to bring recreation projects and Gulf Triumph dollars to Wakulla County. I keep looking at the billboard up at 319 in Bloxham that says $40,000 cheaper to live in Wakulla County. I don't want to be $40,000 cheaper. I want to be $40,000 better. And I think, if we invest some of this new development money into our recreation program, we can do that and still keep the growth. And I think it's a real important thing to think about. And, I guess I can't bring it back up, but I would hope somebody would think about that.
How long before Chuck can bring it back? He voted for it last time, but it failed. He was in the
I
non-prevailing
don't
party.
remember when that was, so it's 6 months, right?
It's been over 6 months.
Yep.
Bring it back.
Bring it back.
It was my item, so.
Or is it a year? I don't know. I have to look.
You got to make sure when you bring it back that those funds would be for that purpose only.
The impact fees are only for increases, what I'm talking about is impact fees for recreation that can only be used for items that directly tied to the growth.
What was the impact fee I had suggested last time? Was it $100 or
Like
something?
$100, yeah.
And that was for library and parks and rec. By the way, the guy that put that billboard up there, Pafford, I talked to him about it. I talked to that young man that just left here, Robbie, who builds a lot of houses. I talked to tons of builders. They didn't have any problem with it. None. Paying that little small impact fee.
Yeah, and we could be
Gene
investing,
Cutchins, I talked to Gene.
and we can
no
invest it
problem.
in our county and invest it in our recreation program, and it would benefit.
You gotta make sure the government doesn't start reaching in and taking it for other projects, as long as you're directing that
That's
for,
the advantage of impact fees. They can only be used for things that are directly
not
tied.
things, not, that's what I'm trying to
Well,
get at.
they can only be used for recreational items that are tied to growth.
End of the story, recreational development.
Trust me, as tough as impact fees are to justify the spend, that concern is not a problem.
Do we have any money left in?
We
impact
have
fee?
very little, thankfully, but it is, I never worked so hard to try to spend money in my life, and I can't do it. That goes to show you how heavy it is.
Corrections is even harder to spend.
Yeah, corrections, we got money in corrections.
Heather,
There's so many rules, which is good, it protects, but it's for the growth and
This is
new
the-
ballparks
for
and stuff
new
like that, it go
capacity,
towards.
increased capacity.
Yeah.
When we're putting in 500 houses a year, you're talking about adding 1,000 kids to our recreational program.
We're not putting
almost
in that
every
many
year.
houses a year.
Yeah, it goes towards those capital projects. Everything we've done has went toward capital. It's added a turn lane here, it's added this, it's added
150
that.
maybe, not 500.
That's the only,
Permits maybe, but
that's the
not.
only thing I would ever support, is, and I've said that from.
You didn't support it when I brought it up as an agenda item. We'd already passed it. I know.
I'm not gonna support it, I don't mind
David's
telling you
son
that.
said that. Look, he's yawning back here again.
In the minority.
Is our impact fee study good enough, Heather?
Your impact fee study is out of date.
Is it sufficient?
No, there's a statute that your impact fees have to be based on the most recent local data.
Can we update it in-house? I don't want to spend $50,000 to come up with a $50 impact fee.
Earlier this year, we received a proposal from the Regional Planning Council regarding an update to that
How much was
particular
that? Do you remember?
impact fee study. I don't recall
It was like
offhand.
3,000 to 5,000, somewhere in there.
Something like
35,000.
that. Yeah, it was, I want to say it was around 3,500, but don't quote me on that.
We voted
It's been
that down.
several months, that's correct.
And,
Or voted
and
against it at the
at
time.
$50, you know, I don't know how long it would take to recover that money. It takes several years. So that's just something to think about. If it's going to cost us $5,000 to be able to do a $50 impact fee, that we won't ever get the money back for 5 years, it's probably not worth doing. But if we can use the existing study, which I think is fine, because we're setting it a lot less than what they recommended anyway, it's our prerogative to make it anything from the maximum, which is what the study tells you. Anything lower than that we can do. We can do $1, we can do $0, which is what we have now, or we can do the maximum. So I guess it's up to Heather.
If we-
To be updated, it's out of date.
Can I update it?
I wouldn't.
How about Brandy? Can Brandy update it?
You can have, I mean, you can update.
Well, let's take a
it
look at
in-house,
it.
But I wouldn't recommend that a commissioner be in charge of it.
I'll provide Brandy with my numbers, because I did go through, it's based, a lot of it's based on land values of Shell Point Beach, for example, when the property values were way up. They took acreage and said, it's worth $1 million an acre, it's probably not
That was
worth
the
that
plan,
anymore.
right?
But
Well, I'm just
We're in no
looking
hurry.
at, our growth rate is accelerating, and
let's see what it costs to update the study to make it legal. If it's a big number, you know, it probably ain't worth it.
yeah. Can we get a head nod for that?
We voted it down. Anything further, Chuck?
That's it.
Jerry?
Basically, since we're sending letters to the DOT, I'd like to have you send them a letter about the intersection that's down at 319 and 98. We need to stop that access on that old 319. We need to send them a letter.
We have.
Have you? Have
They're
you
working
sent
on
them
it.
a letter from the complete board saying that
Highway.
we would like to see that? During the hurricane that we had, I guess, it was a mess. We had all these cars in a line going up and making a turn, and it will happen. Something not good is going to happen.
Well, and even even before we sent the letter, the DOT guys that come and look at that stuff, they went down there and they followed their GPS, went down to Panacea and come back, and they actually turned left there and had to do it, and they're like, yeah, this is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the last we heard about it. I'll check up.
I don't know why they can't just put a no left turn, even if they won't close the road, put a no left turn.
No left turn or no right.
Been
and just-
suggested to them
yeah,
before. They just
yeah.
haven't done anything yet.
They
They
just
say
haven't
they're
done
going to.
They say they are, and the plans are is to cut the right-hand turn lane off and then pull the median forward on the left turn lane so that it'll stop that, but nothing's happened
I
yet.
talked to Jason Peters, who's the number 2 guy over at DOT, and when he went and looked at it, he called me, he says, you see these skid marks? I said, that's a running joke right here. People come from the island or something, they just lock their tires right across the median. I think the next day is when all those reflector signs popped up, and spent a lot of money on signs
Yeah,
that day.
they're trying, but you're right, it needs to get.
People in the left
Keep
lane, people in the left lane actually stop while the right lane goes straight so that they can make a right-hand turn into that cut. It's
Now, they did mention that they were looking at some additional funding towards the end of this year to continue the 4-laning going south on 319-98 from the intersection to correct not only the left turn lane, but also, you know, right now you have to go across 2 double yellows to get into Rockies if you're coming
It's a
north.
mess. They've got,
They've created an illegal turn that everybody has to turn to get into access Rockies.
the
So
only,
they understand that, and they want to take care of that as well.
the only part of that the intersection is great, but going north off of 98 is bad when you get to Mike's Church. Everybody is,
Put my name on anything.
There we go.
Mike's intersection.
Stuart, take my name off of it.
I want my name on that.
How about the Google Maps issue and the whole,
That state was looking into that as well, and they were trying to.
I've watched people and you can see they're following their.
Oh, yeah. We had a tanker truck turning around in the school parking lot.
Well, and that's the guys even with DOT did the same thing. They're like, yeah, you're right. It took us right around there.
I'll give you another suggestion on that intersection, is the way we work with the school, if there's any way to route as many people as possible through that light, because I take my daughter there in the morning, when you're coming out of that place, you got to go across 4 lanes of traffic to get back to Crawfordville.
Well, that is something that we need to talk to school about, because I was hoping they were going to work towards that, assuming that they would, but
If you take the parent drop-off, at least take the parent drop-off out of there, because the kids go in and they stay, but the parents come in, they got to go back out, and you literally got to cross 4 or 5 lanes of traffic.
we should have brought that up while Bobby was here, but I can send it.
I don't think he likes hearing about
They
it.
changed the timing a little bit, but it's
Yeah.
not
I was
enough
going to
to
ask you,
clear
is
it.
that working?
I don't think so, no,
Okay.
not enough.
Even if everybody, because right now the school buses do go out with the light, which makes it a lot easier for the buses. Even if you could, have the buses go out first and then parents, whatever, I don't know.
Anything further?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. I have 4 or 5 sheets I'd like to go over. No, just kidding you. Over the weekend, we had the first annual Veterans Ball, and it was a success. There was probably 200 people at the ball with veterans, and we had hors d'oeuvres and dancing and speeches by the veterans, and we didn't have Mike. Mike, where were you?
I had another engagement. I think it needed to be advertised better.
I think
next year
so.
we do
I
a
think
much
so,
better
too.
job. But I think it's a wonderful event to have, and
But they really enjoyed it. Everybody, really, they had a good time and they really enjoyed it. So,
I couldn't make it either. Homecoming was at the same time, and we had things going on with family.
Mr. Hess and I made it. So,
They'll represent us well.
And Chuck did the hazardous waste day.
but thank you for throwing me under the bus, Jerry. I appreciate it. I'm just kidding.
That's okay, Mike. You're staying very quiet. You're not going to get in trouble. One other thing that's important, we hear so much about buy Wakulla, trade Wakulla, whatever. Right now, we're buying Mississippi and Texas oysters in Wakulla. The Wakulla restaurants are selling. It's sort of like we're selling Apalachicola oysters, but we're not selling Apalachicola oysters. the restaurants are selling Mississippi and Texas oysters. When you see that big old oyster that covers a plate, that's not a Wakulla farmed oyster. So when you go to your restaurants, ask them if the oysters that they're serving you are Panacea water column oysters. Ask them. If we ask them enough, they'll start putting them on their menu. But when you get that oyster that's the size of your plate, that's not a Wakulla oyster. Our oysters basically are running max 3 inches. Most of them somewhat smaller than that. That's what the people want. But when you go to your restaurants, and I'm going to bring this up every meeting, let's buy Wakulla. Let's buy. You like that, David?
Was that Sarah yawning, or was that the kid?
That was Brandy.
Okay.
But ask your restaurant to serve Wakulla water column oysters. We've got them now, so they... Mr. David, I'll ask you a question.
Okay.
Speed bumps in Shell Point. I've got people calling me about, we were going to put a speed breaker somewhere on the road before the
Yeah,
light.
we're hoping to wait to do that whenever we get the, we're getting ready, we're going to be doing some paving after we do the renourishment work, because we got to put so many dump trucks in there, and then we're going to come in and put some sidewalks and some speed bumps, because we got to pave
Okay.
as well.
Good enough, good enough. And in your Gulf Triumph money, St. Mark's asks us for so little. It's sort of like they're a great community. We never hear from them.
We threw one project in there,
Which one was that?
the kayak and
Oh.
launch, because they had it
Right.
permitted and ready to go.
Right, that was so important, because I'm seeing more kayaks now than I am boats. Okay.
Have you been down to Otter Lake Road
Yeah,
to see the speed table?
yes.
I understand if you want to get some fun afternoon, just sit up there and watch the traffic hit it.
Yeah, I saw that the other day.
Everybody says that's rather comical.
Just a couple of items that are somewhat interesting, and it probably doesn't pertain to anything. I have a Duke Energy home protection plan. So I get this letter from Duke, and it says, "Thank you for being a home protection plan customer. Our protection covers your appliances," and so forth and so forth. And then it asks me if you would like to avoid costly repairs from your surge damage, you can subscribe to this 3 levels of service, and it will also protect your appliances and whatever. I'm just wondering from Duke what I have my first protection for, if the second one is going to cover the same thing as the first one. Just a public
Just another
idea.
monthly fee.
Sir?
Just another monthly fee.
Well, it's amazing. They're gonna sell me a product that I've already got to do the same thing.
You know, Jerry, there's one born every minute, they say.
One born every minute is the guy. It's the guy who put this. One other sort of humorous thing. We have our Toyota that we drive leased. So when you do that, they do credit checks and so forth. So having done that, Toyota sends out a letter and says that at such point in time as you no longer have your lease, or during your lease, we can send out your credit information to anybody and everybody that does business with us. Well, I understand that. But a little farther down the fine print, it says, at such time as you no longer have a lease with us, we can still send all this stuff out to anybody and everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of maddening. But anyway.
Cue your son to yawn again real quick, please.
But you agreed to it when you signed the papers.
Randy?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even stretch.
Anything else? Only thing I have, I'd just like to announce Wednesday at 1 p.m. at the Community Center, the Triumph Gulf Coast Board of Directors meeting is here. So this is the first time they've come to Wakulla County as a group, so good time to see the process and take part of that.
Who's going?
We can go.
Anybody can go.
Yeah, it's publicly noticed, yeah.
Yeah.
I intend to be there.
Yeah.
I won't be there.
Yep.
My turn.
That's all I have.
It's going to be a dog mess.
A couple things. First, let me clarify, I'm not the only veteran up here. Ralph's a veteran, I'm a veteran, and Randy's a veteran.
I was like
Yeah.
Billy Idol. I danced with myself.
I did legitimately have a long-standing engagement I had to go to that night, but I will do my best to make the next one.
Let me ask you a question. If you're a reservist, does that make you a veteran?
Yes, if you served over 6 months of any active duty, or you deployed, then you're considered a veteran.
The way the government did the reservists, we served 1 day less than 6 months.
So then,
So I'm not a medic then.
yeah, no.
You're almost.
Yeah, I'm 1 day shy. I'm 1 day shy from being a veteran.
The other thing I had was,
I'm swear, that's true. They bring you right down to 1 day
180
before.
consecutive days. When I was in the Gulf War in Saudi Arabia, I was hoping, well, they'll send us home at 6 months, but that didn't happen.
David sent us an email and asked us to go up and look at the extension office, so I took some time today to go do that, and I met with Les. And if you haven't been up there to see what they've done, the modifications and the upgrades, it is really nice. I mean, you got to appreciate hog business and other things, but with all that said, I was impressed with what they had gotten done. Our staff, which is Cody and his gang. I mean, you really need to go look at it and see how much work they've done. It's really a nice facility, and I wanted to encourage the board. Les and I were talking today about the grant money. I think, is that called FDAC money, or? Yes. And if we can continue to get after those kind of grants, however we do that, Sheree or whoever does that, David.
We regularly, when it opens up, we do it.
I think right now, while we got Halsey, Bashirs, and Montford, is the time to try to attack that money, because they're big on those kind of grants. So,
We successfully I think we spent almost every penny of that money.
but we got a nice facility up there. I'm telling you, you go to other counties and you look at their ag center, and farmers are a dying breed in this area, in our country, but in this area. So I'm proud to say that we got a nice facility up there.
We
and
went
I
from
appreciate
last
it.
place to first place.
Yes.
I went by there today also, Mike, and Mr. Harrison was in a meeting, so I didn't get to see him.
We still got beekeepers. Don't forget about them. They're ag too.
And they go there. They have a class for beekeeping. So
And the next thing we want to work on is the kitchen and,
yes, we can make
some
that
of
a commercial
stuff, yeah.
kitchen, and we can get him some more facilities outside to do more event. I mean, kids don't understand anything but this now, and we got to start teaching them, where does food come from? They just go to the grocery store and buy it. They don't understand where it comes from.
Right.
So, that's something to
Let
learn
them
up
slaughter a chicken then.
there. And I appreciate what those folks do, so. And pass on to Cody that,
okay, I'll do that.
great. That's all I got.
Motion to adjourn.
Stand adjourned. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
Got a squirrel. Never eat again. My daughter helped me.